Welcome to Define Play, where I interview fascinating people to find out what play means to them. My name is Michael Mirza, and my guest today is Russell Weiss, the owner and perfumer at Deep Field Aromatics, a Chicago-based perfume company that specializes in botanical and natural-based perfumes. I was actually a fan of Russell's work even before I knew him, so connecting with him about this has been such an honor. When he's not creating his own perfumes, he's also a multimedia artist who paints and is an audio producer. He even teaches classes to Chicago high schoolers about how they can bring their senses to life and create their own perfumes. I had a great conversation with Russell, learning about his philosophy of play and his creative approach. I think you'll really enjoy this, whether you know much about fragrance and perfume or not. There's something in here for everybody. So thanks for being here. Let's get into the conversation with Russell. I want to start by just asking you, what is one of the earliest memories you have of really connecting to and appreciating a fragrance or a smell in the wild or just in your childhood? It was like, how old were you, or what do you remember about that?
I remember there was these two scents. One of them was really bad, and one of them was very, it was like this kind of candy scent or something. And both of them were associated with my great-grandmother, who, she would take care of me. She was in her 90s when I was, she died when I was 7. And so there was these two scents that then later, when I was a little bit older, I would encounter, and they were associated with my time with her, but, I was so young, I had no specificity in terms of what I was smelling, but that associative, right, the emotion, it drew up a well of emotions that were indescribable because they were connected to these hazy memories. So it was kind of this atmospheric emotional experience rather than this specific one, and trying to kind of connect what they were and what the experience was, kind of opened up a whole gateway such that I loved it was like I was diving into a whole mystery rather than having a specific experience of, this reminds me of that time I was here. Right. It was much deeper than that.
Did it feel mysterious at that early on as well?
Yeah, because I couldn't figure out what they were or what I was smelling or and so it just felt like this, like I was diving into the past, but then wasn't able to fully uncover or describe what it was that I was experiencing. So it felt rich.
Interesting. So I love the idea of mystery, and I often find with my untrained palate, some of the packaging or the marketing of a fragrance it leads the witness a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
And there's, I'm being told this is what it smells like. It smells like this place or this thing. Now I'm coming in looking for that. Whereas if I came in blind, I might totally not know what it was and might need some help. Do you try to cultivate a sense of mystery with what you create?
Yes, yeah. And so one of the things that is really important to me, or the reason I got connected to this in the first place, is because as an artist, I've worked with a range of different media. And so I was always looking for this kind of sensory immediacy, not this kind of cerebral distance that happens when you're considering like painting, for example. And working with botanical aromatics specifically, because when you're encountering the packaging and it's telling you those notes, right? What those notes are constructed of are things with names like, undecavertol and, cis-3 hexanyl acetate.
These are like very scientific names.
They're chemicals, right?
Yeah.
And so, which is everything. I mean,
Even natural
materials are chemicals. But using the botanical aromatics, right, I'm using these plant extracts, and I found that they were just so transporting. They brought me somewhere. And that sense of immediacy was, it was instantly compelling.
Yes.
And so I found that I could kind of create a sense of mystery, of space, of remembered and imagined spaces. And I was using the materials to kind of build. I was using the materials from the actual flora to build these spaces, right? And so then as I've developed, right, now I incorporate synthetic aroma chemicals as well in some of my perfumes, but a number of my perfumes retain, they're still all botanical because I find that link really compelling, where I'm using the real materials, and I'm using materials that have been used for thousands of years in perfumes. So there's this really rich link to the past, but I'm doing it through modern science, because the way I'm using those materials is not just a raw extract from the plant, in olive oil. It's run through all of these kind of scientific extraction processes.
Wow, that's so fascinating. And that's partly by necessity, right, to preserve it and to bring it out and have it celebrate its best. But it's also, like you said, it's using technology that didn't exist
Right.
to capture something.
That's why I named my company Deep Field. Because right, with the Hubble and now the Webb Deep Field, right, they're using really advanced technology to peer back in time, right? And so using these materials that are the same materials that, right, Cleopatra would have had anointed all over her, and yet through these really high-tech processes that are able to capture the kind of living aroma of the plant in a much more sophisticated way than back then. And so I found that parallel kind of intriguing.
That's really cool. And I love the field part of the name as well, because I know you're an avid nature lover, and even here in Chicago, like it's not, it's no Pacific Northwest, but we have access to a surprising amount of forests and nature. What is your process like in the field when you are, you've got all your materials here in your lab, but when you go out into the woods, when you go out into nature,
so that was principally the first thing that hooked me, even when I just had a few essential oils in a diffuser, was that it brought me back to times when I was backpacking, when I was experiencing, when I was kind of in the environment. And so there's just all of these moments, right, where you smell the bark of a ponderosa pine, and it's like warm maple syrup and wood. And
you're talking my language now.
or like, lying in a decayed trunk of a tree where it's all just fine wood chips. And you're this kind of dry, ancient wood aroma. So what I do in the field is I stick my head into absolutely everything. I twist off little bits of leaves and twigs and needles of conifers, and I'm always, I like to play this game too, where I, if I'm out with people and then I have them grab some needles off of a tree, and then I play this game where it's like, you have to just put it in front of me, and I have to tell you whether it's a spruce, a pine, a fir, etc.
You're pretty good at it.
Yeah, I'm pretty good.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. And so you've got to collect the materials. We don't have the technology yet to capture a smell in the wild, right?
Well, it does exist.
Really?
But, I mean, yeah. There's actually a couple ways to do that, but without getting too far into that. I mean, that is what they do. So when you do what's called a headspace analysis through GCMS, gas chromatography, mass spectrometry, you can bring like living flower material into the lab, and it vaporizes it, and then gives you a readout of the kind of chemical constituents. But then that readout and then the reconstruction of that's where the kind of art happens, because there's a lot of science. I mean, these machines are super expensive to run and maintain and whatever. But also, I do not have one here.
Yeah, right.
But they're also, through that headspace analysis, this is why you can look at a readout and say, okay, what this species of rose, like what are the aromatic volatiles that come off this species of rose? But then the real kind of discovery happens in the trace elements, because while you can do a headspace analysis of a rose and put together the major components, right? You can have a rose, but it's through all the tiny little trace elements and the things that are produced, naturally, that maybe are not even described in the scientific literature, some of these traits, right? And so oftentimes in the analysis of those trace elements is where there's innovation in the synthetic aromacochemical, industry is analyzing these trace elements and replicating them or doing discovery based on what they find in some of these trace elements. And that's why, you can replicate things to a degree.
With like a synthetic
but it's very difficult to create something that's truly lifelike.
Right.
But then on the other hand, sometimes the synthetic reconstructions are able to then leave out some of the materials that maybe you don't want, that are some of the off notes and things. So they're oftentimes kind of cleaned up versions. There are some, but a lot of the companies who do that save the best stuff for in-house anyway.
Yeah.
And so what's on the market is just like not truly what they have in the back. That is like the really sophisticated stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
So because if you're going to mass produce a replica of something, you have to have the sustainable amount to produce it. And sounds like there is technically the possibility for, sci-fi smell-o-vision. Like you could analyze source data.
There are people working on it.
Yeah, and
there's people working on it.
I believe it. And like in the same way, if you had a 3D printer at home, in the same way, if you had some sort of machine that had chemicals reserves in it, it could take data and then send out the signal while you watch a movie or something.
There are absolutely companies working on that.
When we were talking earlier about the sense of mystery and cultivating the immediate transport to a sense of place, sometimes you are creating fragrances that represent a place somebody has never been or has never actually encountered in the wild. Yeah. And yet you might give them language to understand what they're experiencing. I imagine when you work with your students, you have a decent amount of people who they've never been to the desert. They've never been to an old growth forest. Like a Chicago high schooler probably hasn't had that opportunity yet. What is it like to train and coach a young, untrained palate as you help them create something?
It's difficult because imagine it's like trying to introduce a picky young eater to foods, right? Their initial impulse is simply to say, I don't like it. Yeah. It's different. I don't recognize it. It's not macaroni and cheese. I don't like it. It's not French fries. I don't like it.
Right.
And so really I have to kind of begin the process by banning that phrase because it's such an unhelpful phrase. And even when I say, when we're evaluating, because you do a lot of evaluation of individual materials, I don't ask, I used to ask like, okay, what do you think of it? Describe it. But there's so many materials that because it's not, it's not, Britney Spears body spray right off the bat. Then they're like, I don't like it. Yeah. And so I'm like, okay, now I ask, what could you make with this? What would this go in? And it doesn't have to be something that you want to make, but what would this go in? And that kind of helps to push their imagination so that they're not just responding in this way, like shutting down, but where they're like, oh, well, I guess this could go in a baby lotion. Okay, good, fine. I guess but they have
That's a start.
stock answers for everything that they have such a limited range of things, and also because scent is something that we, as a sense, it is the lowest rung, right? It's associated with animals. It's very low on the totem in terms of, and it's associated with the thing that I think is avoiding.
Yeah.
Because if you think about, for example, it's only very recently that we have a space that would be neutral of all smells, right? And so we're trained to kind of avoid smell or think of it as a range of things that we don't like, and then the smells that we're kind of trained to be attracted to are very sanitized. And so there's this whole range of human experience with scent that is kind of shoved into the closet, so to speak. And so I try to get them to open up their minds and their experience to engaging with scent beyond it's a hyper sanitized product that I like the scent of, or it's something that I don't want to talk about or think about.
Speaking specifically in the realm of play, and what I hear taking elements and saying, not just what does this remind you of, but what could you make out of this?
Yeah.
To me, that is such a rich metaphor for the creative process in many ways, of taking elements that on their own are either underwhelming or difficult to understand, and then playfully creating something that is harmonious. Where does play show up in your creative process when you're teaching students or when you're creating your own products?
Oh, I mean, all over. It's a huge part of, because when I'm evaluating materials, I'm often, I'm thinking kind of, where does this take me? And then as I'm kind of combining them, I'm going on a journey, and I'm letting that journey kind of take me wherever it takes me. So it could be something literal that I'm thinking of and trying to recreate, or some space or memory. But oftentimes it just becomes more inventive than that, and becomes its own path that I'm charting, rather than I'm trying to look back and create something.
Okay.
And so then that is like, okay, so maybe there's, this and that happening in that space, or maybe this is the feeling, or, and so it is, it's like almost writing a little short story that I'm going to keep to myself or something, that, but then is embedded into the perfume. And then what I love about this medium is that instead of being on a wall and having people consider it, is that everyone gets to take it with them, and it becomes part of their, it's in their context, and they get to live their life with that experience. Coloring it, but it's not my literal words in their ear telling them what to experience. It's their own. But that's what I do here is I am with the materials kind of thinking about, I think that's also because I'm self-taught. So because I'm not trained formally, my whole kind of track with perfumery was not about thinking in a top-down way about how do these materials, and this is how you make an amber accord, and this is how you make this. It was very much just directly responding to the materials and trying to combine them in ways where it would open a door. And I could walk through the door, and then I could add more and try to open the next door. And so through that, there's a whole lot of failure that happens, which is part of the process, is a necessary part of the process. But through that, that whole process is necessarily playful. It's not top-down, orderly, scientific thinking about, well, you have to combine this with this, and this is a traditional accord in this way. That stuff came later.
Yeah.
At first, it was very much just experiential. This is like jumping into a pile of leaves, okay? And it's like, it's dry outside. There's a big dry pile of leaves, and there's like still cicadas in the trees, but the leaves are fallen and it's warm outside.
Yeah.
And, maybe someone's having a fire the next grove down, and just those kinds of things where it's very experiential rather than top-down considered in a through a kind of in a structural way.
Yeah. And does that show up in the way that you teach students as well, that same playful approach?
Oh, I certainly try to give that to them.
Yeah.
Is that I want them to, and I tell them, grab materials that make you think of something that inspire you, and just put them together and see what happens.
Yeah.
And then that's going to take you somewhere, or it's not.
Yeah.
And then you're going to have a bunch of these little bottles where you tried to combine things and it doesn't work. And that's part of the process, because now okay, well, now I have something that I like, but I remember when I added this thing to this thing, it just smelled like cough syrup. And so I'm not going to add that one. You need that information, right? Because part of the play process for them, trying to get them there, is getting them not to be afraid of failure. Because they're so terrified of getting things wrong that they're and I'm like, look, these materials are for you to use them. Put things together. It doesn't matter if it works. Do you think you were you able to skip right when you were crawling, and then suddenly you were just skipping? No, you fell down all of the time. That's how you build the architecture in your brain to do anything.
100%.
But that's not how school works. And so they're really terrified of getting it wrong, which it is, that school doesn't ask them to play and get it wrong. Because that play is, play is the space before you're doing the thing, right? And then they're they get into the class, they make some little thing, they combine like strawberry and vanilla or something, and they're like, I want to start a business. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe let's play a little bit before we try to just enter the world of commerce.
Right, because you have to have a certain degree of safety for trial and error and failure to actually let the creative process unfold before you shift into performance and output, and
which is they go there right away.
Right, because that, to your point, that is the entire way a school system that was originally designed to produce factory workers in a capitalist system is going to train up students, and still to this day is the way that people are trained. So one other thing on the play thing is you are a multimedia artist, you're a painter, you're a designer, you're a music producer, other things I'm sure I'm not even thinking of. Like, you are a full-on creative in so many ways. Is this approach of play and trial and error and self-teaching consistent in your other media as well?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, so there's one thing that... So, you saw some of my paintings, right? I can paint in a very exacting manner, in a reproducing manner. And sometimes that's the approach that I want to take if I'm trying to, for example, that rabbit caught by a hawk painting.
The detail, incredible.
That was a moment I witnessed.
Yeah.
And I had a little point and shoot camera. And so, it's probably a 4 megapixel digital camera, right? With a 64 megabyte SD card or something. And so I took a picture of that moment, and I had witnessed it, and I wanted to reproduce it because I felt it was powerful, and I wanted to reproduce certain things about it, right? The distance of the bouquet of the light through the leaves, and then the kind of compressed distance of the hawk or of the rabbit tangled in the branches, and then the leaves. So that's like reproducing a specific experience in a specific moment. Whereas I take a completely different approach with my improvised paintings, in that I just start making marks, and then I have a kind of certain universe I'm located in, and then I layer and layer, and I just let it go, because I want what develops. I don't want to know what's going to develop ahead of time. I need it to kind of surprise me, because that's what keeps it interesting. The other aspect of that process, though, is that it's incredibly frustrating because I'm always on edge when I'm making those paintings, because I know that it's like I'm trying to shape something out of mist.
Yeah.
Because I don't have an objective. And so it's like so precious in this way, because what can happen is if you move your hands the wrong way, the mist just disperses, and then you have nothing, and then you're like, this is not it.
It's hard to come back.
And what is it when you don't have an objective? It's like you don't know until it's there in front of you, and you made it, but it's almost like you're channeling something. I'm trying to channel something that ultimately surprises me, rather than create something that I've seen before.
Yeah.
And so that is that's kind of the other aspect, is when you're playing for real, then you're kind of on the knife's edge, because there's this risk that this thing that you're trying to materialize won't, because you don't even know what you're trying to materialize.
Yeah, real play is inherently risky.
Yes.
Because of like the nature of the need to fail, the need to, if you're creating something, it could be lost or ruined because of the delicacy of the process. And
and if there's no risk of failure, then you're just creating something that you have seen before and that and like, if that's fine to do, but if that's not what you're doing, then there's always going to be this you're just walking on the ledge of the canyon.
Wow, that's profound. Okay, so based on that, if you were going to summarize your own personal definition of play, what would you say?
Well, in a creative process, whether you're with yourself or with other people, it's playing a game with yourself or with other people, where the objective, how you win the game, is by materializing this thing that didn't exist before. And you have to understand that when you're playing the game, you lose more often than you win. And that's part of playing the game, right? Otherwise, if there's no risk, there's no reward. And that applies to, when in my sound work, I often, like, for example, I did sound design for dancers. So I would show up, and then they'd give me a piece of paper with bizarre pictures on it, like a man with a balloon for a head, and just all kinds of weird stuff. And they'd be like, okay, this is what we're working with. And so as a sound designer, I would, I kind of loved that, because I would just get these abstract inspirations, and they
would bring you visual art and say, turn this into a sound.
Yeah, they weren't looking for anything specific, and so I kind of had freedom to create and respond based on what I was looking at as they were creating things, and that freedom and abstraction I really appreciated, because then I was able to just go off, and I wasn't creating something based on an expectation, or I wasn't given a brief that was like, here are the notes that we need to hit, and so I really enjoyed that. Also, I was part of a group called Schwintonation.
Schwinto?
Schwintonation.
Okay.
Like
Schwintonation.
intonation.
Okay.
Well, so all of our instruments were made out of bicycle parts.
So cool.
And we made like a bicycle harp where we strung guitar strings on a bike frame and used contact microphones.
Yeah.
And so that was just super playful, super, and then we would kind of play together and improvise and make music that way. Because again, this not having rigid expectations allows you to just dive into somewhere and really be surprised by the result. And, obviously that was just kind of silly but it was fun, right? And having a creative limitation like that allows for you, it's like, what sounds can we make with these things?
Totally.
And then you get inventive in that way, and you develop new techniques because you have these limitations, right?
Yeah.
It's not like you're just sitting in front of, you have, all of your effects in your laptop, and you have everything, and you just have the blank canvas problem. Like, I have everything to make any sound on earth, but like, what do I want to do?
Yeah.
You have a really limited set of tools. And so then you have to create within that.
Yes.
And, that's also why
Constraints breed creativity,
and
ironically.
That was really how I developed as a perfumer as well, because for years I was working only botanically. And so that constraint, other perfumers would be like, haha, yeah. Because it's so limiting in terms of, there's all of these range of materials that you don't have access to when you're working botanically. But for me, that constraint forced me to be super innovative, because instead of having just everything in front of me and not knowing what to do with it, I just had these certain set of materials, and I just tried and tried and tried and tried until I got what I wanted out of them. And then by doing that, kind of developed an original voice.
Very cool.
That isn't just, okay, you took a class and you have the basic materials and you make a thing that's kind of like all the other things, right?
Yes.
So, I think through the through line through all of that is, and that even happened in perfumery, right? People, companies, individuals will come to me and say, we want a scent, we want, I had a design firm here in the city that wanted a scent for their offices and for their corporate, they set up at conventions, and it's
got to like align to their brand strategy.
Exactly. And so it's like they want to make hand sanitizers and lotions with their scent in them. And then also they want their offices to be scented with this scent. And so what is that scent? They don't have any notes for me. They just say, oh, we heard of you through this person, and so can you develop a scent for us?
We want it to be refined and clean and welcoming.
Right.
And you're
it's like,
what does that mean?
What does that mean?
Yeah.
But through my experience working in all of these other, collaborative media, like making music for dancers and doing improvised sound design and music and things like that, I've had this experience multiple times of people coming to me with really abstract starting points and saying, okay, make this.
Yeah.
And then I do my version of it. And so that actually wasn't, that process was not foreign to me when I started making fragrance. And then people come to me and say, we want something for our offices. And then it's like, what is that scent? What is that? And that abstract starting point, I was very comfortable with. And so I'm able to answer that. I'm able to say, oh, I think it's this.
Yeah.
And then they're like, yeah, it's this.
Cool. That's so fun. Well, this has been amazing. I want to close by having you give us just a little tour of some of your different products that people can pick up, and you can help us decide which one might be right for, different kinds of people.
Yeah, for sure. I think in terms of play, there's a couple that I want to highlight. So the first one is called Abad. This was my COVID perfume. So I composed it in December of 2020 when, things were terrible and we were all kind of stuck alone, and it had been a minute. And so I started to think about like, what does freedom smell like? And so I really went back to this space in childhood of like rolling around in the grass, of like running through my grandmother's garden, having a lime popsicle on the porch in summertime. And so this is an all botanical perfume, which right, you can kind of tell by the color. It's made with this range of really incredible green materials like violet leaf and mango leaf and tomato leaf.
So good.
And it has a little bit of sweetness, right? It has some vanilla and some kind of peachy notes. It's very grassy, and it's just kind of a
sunny and
like a green bouquet, and but then with a kind of creamy base that there's some orange blossom and magnolia, and then sandalwood and vanilla, making this kind of creamy sweetness in the base.
Okay, the orange, it's sunny, it's bright. I love it. Great.
And so that is literally a green perfume, because it's the last batch was like day glow green. This one's a little darker. And then another kind of sweet one here. So this was Pink Cloud is a really funny perfume. It's something I never would have composed, because like my brand, right, the core of my brand are these really dark, woodsy, like, you know, a cave art is literally like an incense pyre in the cave of Lascaux, right? It's ancient. And, you know, Velicor, which you mentioned, it's based on the scent of old books, pipe tobacco. It's kind of like an Indiana Jones perfume, but if he were a good archaeologist. And so those are the perfumes that, you know, forest perfumes, earth perfumes. So this is an atmospheric gourmand, and it uses this range of really sweet notes like berry parfait and vanilla. And I never would have composed this perfume, but when I teach students, they all come in, high schoolers, they all want to make like strawberry shortcake, right? And so, you know, in order to better support them, I was messing around with that scent profile, those materials, and I was like, wait, I can actually make something with this. I started with this kind of like raspberry lemonade
and clearly there's
thing.
A demand for it, if that's what they all want to make.
And then I thought, I can make this because I combined the sweet notes with these really atmospheric, ozonic notes to create something that has a much more sophisticated scent profile than just like strawberry shortcake.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
But you can smell the sweeter notes in there, but they're really cushioned by some of these really much more atmospheric. And you know, this perfume, at least right now, is over 60% botanical. And so there's a lot of synthetic materials in there, but like the bulk of it is these beautiful, like there's a champaca CO2 in there that's really like kind of an apricot tinted floral.
Yeah, by description I would have guessed when you said like, and I imagine what some of those high schoolers have in mind is a very cloying, sweet.
Oh yeah.
That is so elegant and subtle and balanced and like really enticing. That's delightful.
Yeah, so and I really appreciate that. If I had never taught the class, I never would have made that perfume. Right. Because it wouldn't have been brand aligned. It would, you know, I just wouldn't have maybe gone there. But because I did, I was able to kind of explore a new terrain. So here's something that's more kind of, I think, aligned with the core of what I do and what, you know, how I started this. This one's called Dirtbag, and this one is all botanical. And this is a gourmand, but it's an earthy gourmand. And so I always had trouble making gourmands. I just never, the profile was difficult for me, especially all botanical when working with botanicals. I think it's easier when you're using synthetics. But when I paired it with earth, I mean, like one of the inspirations for this so I call it a hedonist perfume. So it's like coffee, it's cocoa, it's whiskey, right? It's stout. It has roasted barley and oak wood, referencing the the stout and the whiskey. But one of the inspirations is like a big pile of decaying wood chips.
I love this so much. I think I had a sample of this from you before, and it is so good.
And so those real earthy, woody tones balance out so
It's such a like sexy masculine, but so earthy. Oh man, it's so good.
And on the website, I think I listed it's beyond 100% baking chocolate. It's like 140% quantum baking chocolate because it's just like it's even though it has a bunch of vanilla and cocoa but it's like bone dry.
Yeah. Oh man, I love that.
Yeah, that one is one of my personal favorites.
When you were talking, I forget what you said earlier about when you want people to wear your creations, right?
Yeah.
You wear them throughout the day. I remember wearing Dirtbag while and it literally shaped my confidence in a different way because I was like, I carried myself differently because of that smell.
Yeah,
and
it
it's
has
so
just
good.
the rugged tobacco and wood mixed with the cocoa. It's a vibe, and I think I'm often playing with these kinds of. I think with Velocore, with Dirtbag, with cave art, I'm playing with. I mean, this one is very much cave art. It's playing with the and Velocore as well, playing with like the ideas of kind of masculinity wrapped up almost in like this really references not just ancient things, but like it smells like maybe the collections room in a museum, right? Or like Velocore with the old manuscripts. It's like this idea of collecting of natural things, of there's this the not just the things in themselves, but then the things collected and the way that we view them through cultural lenses.
This one is, to me, like, this is a scent I want to grow old with. Like, it is so. Oh yeah, the manuscripts, like you're saying, it's both. I'm gonna butcher it if I try to put language to it. I love this one so much.
So cave art started. There's this plant that grows everywhere in the Southwest. It's called chaparral or creosote bush, and so like if you're like in Phoenix, for example, when you go into the preserves, right, it's the scrub that's everywhere.
Okay.
It smells like desert petrichor, like desert rain, and so I have a bunch of dried chaparral, which you can buy as a tea, but you're not supposed to drink it. It has a big FDA warning.
Oh.
Apparently it's bad for your liver, but so I took a tincture of it, and it has this wet stone character, and I was like, I love this, but what do I do with it?
Yeah.
What do I do with it?
Yeah.
And so then I started to go on a journey, and I was like, oh, this is the cave. And so what are the rituals that happen in the cave? What are these kind of locked off things that happen that I don't have access to living in the 21st century? And so just trying to kind of imagine that and recreate that. And so that pairing of the incense perfume with the wet stone is
This is a masterpiece. Like, cave art is so good.
That's
so
it's
good.
funny. When I made it, I was like, who's going to want to smell like a dirty old cave?
Me.
And I was very wrong
Yeah, me.
to assume that.
I mean, yeah.
And so then, let's see, switching that up to something very...
Can we go to Velocore as well? Because like,
Of course, yeah.
between Dirtbag, cave art, and
Yeah,
Velocore, those were my initial favorites.
Those are
and I
the
think
three.
that like they're kind of cousins.
Yeah,
In some ways.
for sure.
I'm
Yeah, they're-
oversimplifying your creation.
No, they're
in a lot
all...
of ways.
Yeah. Well, so Dirtbag and Velocore are literally cousins. They're both made with the same kind of base. They're made with this really beautiful vetiver absolute. And they're both vetiver tobacco perfumes.
Okay.
And so Vellicore is the kind of Indiana Jones perfume. The like, it's like ancient man. So I started trying to make an old paper accord because I learned the word Vellicore, which means, you know, the strange wistfulness of a used bookstore or a feeling brought on by the scent of old paper.
Incredible that there's a word for that.
It's a neologism, and you know, someone coined it on its
Yeah.
blog. And so I learned that word and I said, well, I have to make this perfume. And so I started with this old paper accord. And then once I got that, I decorated it with the kind of signs of what would be like someone who is involved with old manuscripts. So it's like a
Leather.
leather and old wood, and there's a cup of tea on the desk and a pipe full of tobacco, and so there's a bunch of yerba mate in there.
Yeah.
There's and yeah, just thinking about those signifiers, like how it's almost cartoonish, but but also very real.
Yeah. Oh man, the dark wood, but this is the one that I was saying earlier, that when I would wear it, the warmth that it had and that it would wrap me in as I would go about my day is amazing. Yeah, that's great.
So yeah, those three are definitely part and parcel. And ochre as well it's an oil, and so this is also a vetiver tobacco perfume because that profile is just too good not to. But so this one is like dry, whereas the other two have more sweetness. This one is like dry. It's like I originally made it to kind of. The idea is like you're jumping into a pile of fallen leaves.
Yeah.
So it's got this a little bit of false spice.
A little like resiny, would you say? Yeah.
Now it's an oil, so really you're smelling it on the paper initially, but really what you want to do is put it on your skin and have it develop for a while.
I'm gonna do that.
Because the way it harmonizes with skin is really like what it's about.
Yeah. That's really nice. It's like, it makes me think of like, it doesn't smell like honey, but yet there's like almost a...
Yeah, that kind of richness.
Yeah, like resin is the word I keep coming back
like
to.
Ambery or
Yeah,
like that golden.
That's really nice, really charming. And I mean, mystery too, in such a great way.
That's what I love. Yeah, and then it's like the real mystery when you're considering the real things, and then also the like lens that we view them through, like whether it's kind of movies or whether it's cultural institutions like museums, like playing with that dynamic. And so here we can wrap it with these two, which are very different from the other ones. Now this, in terms of play, is something I made in a nostalgic bent. It is based on like a Bath and Body Works body spray, something that you'd smell, right? Like the scent of like early 2000s, like high school or something.
What's this one? This is Wave
It's
Collapse?
called Wave Collapse. Yeah. However, it is my version, so it is loaded with a range of super high quality botanicals. I mean, there's a bunch of real sandalwood and real orris, which is like dried iris rhizomes. That is a very precious material.
Okay.
And so it has this kind of, I mean, you'll recognize the scent profile. It's like an ozonic kind of aquatic perfume, but it has this hazy, powdery undertone that's actually really rich.
And it's like, it's interesting you said hazy, because to me it smells like I've been inside all day and I walked outside, and I'm just like, the fresh air is just so refreshing.
Or like misty. Or
yeah. I see what you're saying. Yeah. Wow. That's enchanting.
And it's recognizable in terms of its scent profile, in terms of its like, oh yeah, okay, I smelled something like that before.
Yep.
But then when you wear it, it has, it also has a number of really high quality musks in it. And so, you could get something that smells somewhat like that, but I promise you, a Bath and Body Works body spray is not loaded with real sandalwood and orris.
I believe you.
So, okay, last one is, I'm gonna give you some of the new batch of, this is called gardenia milk.
Okay.
And so this is just, it's exactly what it sounds like, but it's kind of, a floral that's just gardenia petals floating in a bowl of peaches and cream.
Oh,
Super
wow.
soft.
Yeah. That to me, I mean, yeah, talk about like just like elegant, regal even. That's so, but it's so floral. That's wonderful. Oh my
And
goodness.
it has a little bit of a woody undertone just to balance it out, but I just wanted to go for
It's
this
just lush.
supreme lush and softness, so that it just carries.
Yeah. And it has such a timeless quality to it as well. Like, this is like a perfume that could age with somebody. That's delightful.
So that, I work on a range of, right, I like to explore. They're all things that I'm personally interested in, because like I couldn't operate like a trained perfumer, who works, you hand them a brief and you say, here's the notes that we need for our brand, and we're making this kind of perfume, or these are our branding points, and so we need this kind of thing. I would stumble on that, because I just, that's not the way I work in the way that we've been talking about, in the way that I described. And so it's really pulled from my experience and my memories and my play. And so, but I do think I have developed like a wide range, right? I haven't just stuck to my original profile of just like earthy forest. I've wanted to kind of push out into other realms, because there's just endless possibilities when it comes to using scent as a creative medium.
Right. I mean, and the world is full of scents to discover and mix, and you've done such an amazing job at that. So this has been incredible. Thank you so much for showing me all of these, for letting me smell them, for welcoming me into your creative process. Do you have any parting thoughts you wanna close with?
No, this has been really fun. I really like talking about it, and I'm happy to have this conversation with you. And I think we should keep talking.
I agree.
This is really fun. I talk about this in the classroom environment, but when you're asking me specific questions and mining, then I can just kind of open up and go for it. And I really appreciate that. Yeah, I'd love to do it.
It's such a joy for me as well. And so my honor to share this space with you. So thank you so much, Russell.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for joining this conversation with me and Russell. I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoyed. You can learn more about Russell's work at deepfieldaromatics.com. I'll put that link in the description below, where you can also find a discount code if you want to place an order for your own special perfume from Deep Field. You will not be disappointed by anything you pick up from Russell. You can also learn more about our show at defineplay.com. If you're not already subscribed or following, we appreciate it if you check us out and come around for a few more conversations. I'm Michael. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll catch you next time. Bye-bye, everybody.